Hello, my name is Christine. Welcome to Fluffy Pigeon Art. Today we are going to paint a clematis. Now, clematis are vine-like flowers. I have some growing in my backyard. I actually just planted them this season and they're vining like crazy. They don't have any blooms yet, but I'm really excited to see what happens. I'm gonna paint something of this sort here for you today. I think I'm just gonna stick with the one bloom and then some maybe viney branches around it. So my watercolor brushes today are from King Art, as they often are. This is a angle shader, and I also have a tri-wedge. I haven't decided entirely yet. I'll be a little spontaneous here what I'm going to start with first, and then I have this round petal brush, which is a short tipped round brush. My watercolor palette is from Sylvan Clayworks. My paint is leftovers from a Daniel Smith set of paints. And I think we're gonna go from there. The paper that I am using is bee paper. I like using it for lots of different scrapping out ideas, basically. It's not necessarily where I put my best work, but it does look really nice when it's finished. This here is a watercolor paper. I don't remember the name of it, but it comes in rounds. It's probably, no, I'm not even gonna guess. You can find it, I'm sure, anywhere. And if I do figure out where this came from, I will post it in the caption. All right, so I'm gonna stick with some purple here. I'm gonna start off light. So I think I'm gonna go with this light creamy pink purple. They have 6 petals on them and they're all a little curly. So what I did here is I actually started with the center first. I might just do that now. Okay, so I'm gonna actually start with this guy. And as far as colors go, you have some options. This one I did in this darkish, like purpley gray color. I think right now I'm gonna go with yellow for the center and then maybe add some purple to it to like make it a little bit more brown. So the centers have a ton of little lines. I don't know if they're stamen, but they're very similar to stamen. They all kind of curve into each other at the bottom. And then there's like a lot of them. So I'm gonna add some more above it, not connect to it, but above it and around it. And if I got this little color blob here, that's easy enough to fix. I'm just gonna take my paper towel and just dab that out and go over it again on top. Because I just didn't want that much. Doesn't mean I can't have it. It just means I just want to lessen it a little bit. And the nice part about watercolor is you don't have to wait for it to dry. You can go in and fix it right away. All right. So you can see I'm creating this feathery little center. I think I'm gonna create kind of like I did here, where they kind of spread out on the bottom a little bit. And then I think I'm gonna add some orange. This is gamboge to the tops. You'll notice I'm making little dots up here for the sections that I can't see, but I can see the tips. And then just adding a little bit down here and around. Okay, so the center is done. I am now gonna go for that petal. I think I'm gonna use my tri-wedge. Now, tri-wedge is like taking a round brush and chopping off the top at an angle. It's got a very pointy tip, but a very like triangular round base. So I'm gonna go in with something light. I'm gonna start with this very light pinky lavender color. And I'm gonna start by pushing my tip down, pressing the belly down, and then curving it in. And then back at the tip, I'm just gonna drag it out a little bit and pull it down so it's a little bit more wavy and a little bit more skinny at the top. I actually I haven't used this brush in quite some time, so if it gets a little messy, I apologize, but so far so good. I'm gonna do this again. I'm gonna go the opposite direction. Drop it down, pull it out. With a round brush, you could just basically paint this yourself instead of using the brush to do the work. You could do the work yourself. You can see I'm kind of playing with these little curlies there at the end. I'm adding a little bit of pigment back towards the center. And then I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4 more around it. Yeah, this is a perfect brush for Clematis. And then I'm gonna curl this out a little bit and pull it in. I think with this one, I'm gonna have it tuck in a little bit behind and curl it out. And then the big parts will be up here. Generally, the consensus is you start light and then you add much darker pigment as it dries or after you put your first light layer down. So you'll see I'm just kind of wiggling that brush out. Okay. And then what I'm thinking about doing, maybe add a little bit more pigment here in the center. So you can see how that's spreading. Like that. I'm gonna add it to the tips too, where those petals have curled. I'm gonna pull this in just a little bit more. I don't want that much space in between. Okay. And then now I have to decide, do I want to add a little bit more blue or a little bit more purple? What I might do is I might let this dry just a little bit on its own. And then from here, I'll come back and add my stems, just kind of like this one. I'm gonna do that vine work. Now, one of my favorite all-time colors is Daniel Smith's Green Apatite. And it is just glorious. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start by making this petal up into the flower, not directly between, but kind of in there a little bit. I'm gonna thicken it up just a little bit. Generally, these are very viney, so I probably could have made this a little curlier, but that's okay. Curl a little bit there on the bottom. And then I'm gonna create some leaves that have a lot of movement. Now, one of the reasons why I like this color so much is it has a lot of granulation to it. Like, it feels like a dark green and also a yellow green all at the same time. So I'm gonna kind of have these spring out from the bottom, and then I'm gonna wiggle them down, kind of like that. And then as it dries, I'm gonna add more to it. So I'm gonna add a little bit of a darker piece here. And the reason for that is I'm gonna add a lighter piece on top when that dries. I'm gonna pop another one up here. I'm gonna drag it up this way. And then I'm gonna put this on the bottom. And again, I'm gonna add more pigment on top of these leaves. I might do a darker bit here and then a lighter bit here and then darker here because this is kind of over the top of it, creating a shadow. And then what I might do is I might take this, I'm kind of working on the fly here. Take this and fly it up behind. And then maybe drag it up here a little bit. Now, why am I doing that? It's to fill in this white space a little bit more. I am not gonna go crazy on making really big leaves. I am just gonna like play with some curls here, because why not? It just does something extra, doesn't it? And then I'm gonna pop this up and move this around. Just such a pretty vibe, these. And I just, again, I love this color so much. I'm gonna drag this up. And remember, this is a viney kind of flower. So the reason why this has so much movement is because it crawls up wherever it's been planted. Let's do another one maybe here. So if anyone ever wonders, like, how do I know where to place leaves? Sometimes you just look at an image that's previously been taken, and there's a lot of learning that comes with that. But that being said, I do think that some of this is just artistic license and playing and figuring out what works best for you. So for me, I like something that looks a little asymmetrical. So see how this is coming up here and filling up this space, and then this feels a little bit smaller over here. It kind of creates this track of like a C, right? Or maybe an, I don't know, like an L or something. Like, it's just this idea that your eye follows a track, and the more curvy it is, the more track you've created for it to follow. I just love that so much. So I'm gonna go ahead and like redo this stem a little bit. And then you should notice up here that this is dried pretty significantly. Now there's a lot of vein in these flowers. Now I can go back and just use this. Ooh, no. Shame that happens. I'm just dab dab. Doesn't exist. Amazing. Okay, can't do that with acrylics, friends. Can't do that with acrylics. It can dry and you can paint over it, but I don't have time for that. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna try and create some veins. And I'm gonna do it super loose because I don't like everything being too obvious. And right now I'm doing it with the colors that I've already used. So this color here, this one definitely needs a little bit more like that. Yes. And then definitely some more shadowing down here underneath. So you can kind of see this is popping up under this portion, which has got the center stuff happening. Some here, drop this down this way. And this may still be wet, like as you're working, it may still be wet. So just kind of keep in mind, this is not gonna stay here. If it's still wet, it's gonna spread. Now the line work I'm doing is a little bit following the original line I made, and some of it's swirling against it. So you can see here it curves this way, and then this one it kind of curves away from it and on and off. You could do that with some flowers. I can't say that you can do them with all of them. It's just, you got to pay attention, like what is the vibe of this particular flower? Does it seem to be dancing and playing by its own rules, or does it seem a little bit particular? And every flower has its own thing happening. Okay, so this is a little bit darker now. So I realistically, I could look at this and say, okay, maybe I overdid it a little bit, but I do know looking at this, I definitely want to add something else. Like it needs something else for me. It needs another color. So what I'm thinking of doing is I'm gonna grab another palette. So don't mind me. So I'm gonna grab this palette because I like that little pink right there. Oh, you probably can't see it. I like this little pink right here. And this is also, I believe, if it's not Daniel Smith, it might be Schminky. Most of my tubes are Daniel Smith or Schminky. So I'm gonna move this palette out of the way for a second. I'm gonna put this here. You can see I do not wash. Oh, and this palette is from Masha's Watercolor. She makes her own palettes and her own watercolor paints, and they're fabulous. So let me add this. Now I'm adding it now because the paint is wet. And it'll move around a little because of that. See that right there? See it moving? I'm gonna add it here too. And under here. You can kind of see I'm adding it in the places where there's more shadow, because you still want the light to show in some of the centers of these flowers. Okay, just like that. Okay, you can already see it's just so, oh, it's so good, so good. And then I'm gonna come back with my other palette. Oh, okay. And I'm gonna deepen that a little bit. Like I'm gonna darken that up a little bit. So let's grab this guy. It needs to be a little wetter, but not too wet because then it'll drip. And why do we do this? Why do we add layers? Well, because otherwise these paintings look super flat. What do I mean by that? That means that they don't, watercolor, as beautiful as it is when you put it on paper, does not always look as pretty when it dries. There is this element of, it's just not as vibrant. And so I think it's important to add layers to give it dimension. Oh, did it again. That's all right. I'm just gonna add this in here anyways. So some of these specks here are being dragged into that portion and some are not. I'm gonna leave that right there. And then I think I'm gonna finish that green. All right, so just so that you guys know, I did stick with the tri-wedge through this whole thing, even though I showed you the other stuff. I'm gonna come back in here with this tri-wedge, but I'm gonna come in with a more watery version just to create that line. Do you see it? So by laying another color above a dried layer, it creates the veins all by themselves. Now, I might need to darken that because we know that this is actually kind of hiding underneath this flower. So you kind of want that a little bit. Even in here, you want to put that in there a little bit. But it just gives this pop that's so valuable to my eyes that I just love. Like this one, I'm just gonna darken the line a little bit. Up here, I'm gonna go back to this more watery layer and add another one on top, kind of like that. Same here. And it doesn't need to be equal in size. Notice it's just a glimpse here too. Okay. And then maybe I would add that extra watery green layer closer to the top up here. Just like that. And look how pretty that is. Okay. I'm gonna drag this around a little bit. Curl this under. And you can see this pink is already blended in. Now, if I want something a little sharper, I can grab, let's see here. I love watercolor soluble crayons. So what I might do is I might curl in, this is a darker kind of purpley color. I'm gonna kind of curl in to some of these spots and just add a little bit. And you can leave it and not do anything to it outside of color it in, like right here and here. And just adding this little bit of shadow and dimension with something unique and different. Or you can water it down and let it do its thing. You can do that too. Let it do its mixing with the other colors. So I think I'm gonna leave some spots, but I'm gonna water down other spots. Like right here, I'm gonna let that blend out a little bit. Just dragging it around. In here, I think I'm gonna blend this out a little bit so that it looks more natural. And over here and here. And I'm just gonna grab the watercolor there. And then I think, I could drag this still even more. And the nice part is now that it's got water on it, you can also add that in and spread that in again. Something a little bit more purpley. I'm just creating these little dots, kind of like stippling. There's just something about mixed media that will always have my heart a little bit. And I think it has to do with like, it's like the quick save. So when I feel like I screwed something up, I can go back in and use some sort of mixed media tool that's gonna make my work look so much better. Okay, so what I'm adding in is a very dark shade of purple, almost gray, to show some shadow between these petals. Do I have to do that? No, absolutely not. Am I gonna add it here a little bit? Yep. Just wanna make that a little bit darker under here. Just kind of like that. Oh, it's so good. I'm so happy with it. And I hope that you are able to create something like it. If you're interested, please follow along with this again, or go to my Instagram page. You'll probably end up seeing something like this in the future, or it's currently been posted for a quick version. But man, this looks so great and I just love it. I hope you do too. Thanks for following along, and make sure to like, share, and tag me if you post any of your work due to this tutorial on social media. Have a great day, everybody.